Why do we fall? This question is more than rhetorical. It is foundational to human experience. From the moment we take our first unsteady steps as children, falling is part of the journey. It's not a sign of failure, it is a sign of life and motion. Every stumble, every misstep, every moment of defeat carries a lesson embedded in its pain. The world does not teach us how to succeed without falling. Instead, it teaches us how to rise because we fall. Falling is not the end, it is the beginning of understanding what we are truly made of. It is proof that we are trying, that we are moving forward, that we are interacting with life itself. Without falling, there would be no push toward resilience, no contrast between weakness and strength, no reason to discover what lies within us. Pain is not punishment. Pain is information. When you fall, your ego whispers that you failed. Your fear tells you to stop. Your mind creates narratives of inadequacy. But these are illusions, noise created by ancient survival instincts that mistake discomfort for danger. In truth, falling teaches adaptation. When your knees hit the ground, you learn balance. When your heart breaks, you learn resilience. When your plans collapse, you discover creativity. Falling exposes the gaps between who you are and who you are capable of becoming. And it is in that gap, that tension between weakness and potential, that growth truly lives. Falling does not equal failure. Failure is only the name we give to moments we wish hadn't happened. But every fall has within it the seed of transformation if we choose to nurture it. The person who never falls never grows. The person who never loses never learns to appreciate winning. The person who never feels pain never discovers inner strength. Every fall is an invitation, not to quit, but to rise with greater knowledge, awareness, and resilience than before. Life has a strange way of hiding gifts inside setbacks. When something goes wrong, when you are betrayed, when you lose a job, when a plan collapses, the immediate experience feels like devastation. But over time, patterns reveal something deeper. Every setback was a redirection. Every closed door a signpost pointing toward a path you might never have seen otherwise. If success came easily, without challenges, without resistance, we would never discover the depth of our capacity to endure and to transform. Thomas Edison, when asked about the thousands of unsuccessful attempts before inventing the light bulb, didn't see them as failures. He called them discoveries. Each attempt taught him a way not to do it. Had he not fallen thousands of times, he would never have illuminated the world. Setbacks become lessons if we approach them with curiosity instead of self-condemnation. The difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck is not the absence of setbacks, it is the ability to interpret them, to learn from them, and to allow them to deepen understanding rather than deepen despair. Falling does not equal failure. Failure is only the name we give to moments we wish hadn't happened. But every fall has within it the seed of transformation if we choose to nurture it. The person who never falls never grows. The person who never loses never learns to appreciate winning. The person who never feels pain never discovers inner strength. Every fall is an invitation, not to quit, but to rise with greater knowledge, awareness, and resilience than before. Pain is temporary, but the lessons it teaches can last a lifetime. When you allow yourself to feel defeat without letting it define you, you unlock a form of strength that cannot be taught, only earned through direct experience. Falling builds humility. It builds empathy. It dismantles illusions about invincibility. It shows us our limits and then demands that we expand them. Setbacks are not curses. They are the forge in which character is shaped. Strength is not a gift given. It is strength earned through repeated trials. Muscles do not grow in comfort. They grow when stress is applied and fibers are challenged. Life works the same way. Resilience is a muscle of the spirit and mind, and it grows only when tested. When you fall, you are temporarily weakened, but when you rise, you rebuild yourself stronger than before. Falling exposes your vulnerabilities, but rising transforms those vulnerabilities into foundations of strength. Every champion in history understands this truth intuitively. They did not become great by avoiding losses, they became great through them. When a boxer gets knocked down, the crowd watches to see whether he rises or stays down. When an entrepreneur loses everything, the question is not whether they had potential, but whether they had the courage to rise again. The world doesn't honor untested talent. It honors resilience, resolve, and relentlessness. You fall not to stay down. You fall to discover what it feels like to rise. When you choose to stand after every fall, you declare that your destiny is not determined by momentary setbacks, but by your response to them. Your courage to rise becomes evidence of your resilience, and every time you rise, you encode deeper strength into your identity. That is why we fall, so that rising becomes our habit, our signature, our power. When you have never fallen, you never fully appreciate what it means to be upright. Triumph without understanding of struggle is shallow. The pain of failure deepens perspective. Those who have never tasted loss cannot genuinely appreciate victory. Falling teaches gratitude. Gratitude for the small wins, gratitude for the lessons, gratitude for the capacity to endure. Perspective is not a consequence of achievement. It is a consequence of struggle overcome. Every setback shifts your worldview. What once seemed impossible becomes possible because you have already survived hardship. What once felt like defeat becomes fuel for your next rise. When you change your perspective on falling, from fear to study, from humiliation to learning, from end to beginning, your life changes direction. You no longer fear falling. You expect it, you prepare for it, and you rise with intention. Falling also teaches humility. When you are always on top, you forget what it feels like to be vulnerable. Vulnerability, paradoxically, becomes a strength because it opens your heart to compassion, connection, and depth of experience. Strength without humility becomes arrogance, but strength forged through falling becomes wisdom. Pain is a powerful teacher if you are willing to listen. Most people run from pain, numb it, avoid it, distract themselves from it. But these responses do not erase pain. They postpone it. Pain must be lived through for its lessons to surface. Pain reveals where we are resisting truth. Pain shows us where we have attachments that no longer serve us. Pain invites us to grow beyond limitations we once believed were fixed. Falling hurts because something in you is being transformed. Pain is fire, and fire refines gold. When you confront pain instead of fleeing it, you uncover deeper layers of your spirit. You discover reservoirs of resilience you never knew existed. You learn that discomfort is not a sign of danger, it is a sign of growth. And when you embrace pain as part of the process, you stop fearing the fall. Most people think falling is the enemy, but the enemy is not falling. The enemy is resisting the lessons that the fall brings. Pain is truthful, pain is honest. Pain does not flatter, it does not deceive. It only shows you what you have been avoiding. And when you face that truth, you transform. You rise. You deepen. You evolve. Fear is the invisible hand that orchestrates most of our falls. It is subtle, sneaky, and convincing, whispering in your ear that you cannot, should not, or will not succeed. Fear tells you to stay small, to blend in, to accept mediocrity, and to avoid the risk of falling again. It masquerades as logic, comfort, and caution, but beneath it lies inertia, the thief of dreams and the silent architect of average lives. Most people do not rise because they are not stopped by failure. They are stopped by fear. Fear of embarrassment, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. Fear makes you pause when you should push. Fear makes you hesitate when you should act. Fear convinces you that avoiding discomfort is safer than growth. But safety is an illusion. Life's rewards are reserved for those willing to step into the fire, confront the fear, and rise in spite of it. The moment you confront fear head-on, you begin to reclaim your power. Fear is not the enemy. Avoidance is. Every time you push through a fearful situation, you are rewiring your mind, teaching yourself that failure is temporary, that you are capable, and that falling does not define you. Courage is forged not in comfort, but in the act of facing what terrifies you most. The extraordinary are not those who never feel fear, they are those who act despite it. Each fall caused by fear is a lesson in disguise, a reminder to stop listening to fear and start listening to the voice within that says, I can rise and I will. Understanding the role of fear is liberating. Fear is a compass pointing directly to the areas where growth is required. The places where you hesitate are the places where your potential lies. The fear that paralyzes is the same fear that, once overcome, opens doors to strength, mastery, and confidence. To rise after a fall, you must not only accept that fear exists, but embrace it as a guide, a teacher, and a challenge. Every fear you face and conquer reduces the power it has over you, allowing you to rise higher than ever before. Falling without purpose is despair. Rising without purpose is temporary triumph. To transform a fall into a stepping stone, you must anchor yourself to purpose, a reason so compelling that it becomes impossible to stay down. Purpose is the fire that ignites resilience. It is the reason you stand again when your legs tremble. It is the force that turns pain into power and setbacks into momentum. Without purpose, falling feels endless. With purpose, each fall becomes a lesson, each setback a setup for your next rise, and each obstacle a reminder of why you cannot quit. When you rise with purpose, the world around you transforms. Challenges no longer feel arbitrary. They feel like training grounds. Failures no longer crush your spirit. They refine your character. The most resilient people in history, from inventors and entrepreneurs to athletes and artists, all share one common trait. They rose repeatedly with unwavering purpose. Thomas Edison, after countless failed experiments, did not quit because his purpose was larger than any single failure. J.K. Rowling continued writing despite rejection because her purpose, telling stories that mattered, was unshakable. Rising with purpose means identifying what matters so deeply that falling becomes a necessary part of the journey rather than a reason to quit. Purpose also provides clarity. It filters distractions, silences doubt, and directs action. When your focus is anchored in purpose, the pain of a fall becomes temporary, while the momentum of progress becomes permanent. The energy spent lamenting failure is redirected toward growth. Rising with purpose is not easy. It requires reflection, honesty, and the willingness to face hard truths about yourself. But it is the only way to ensure that every fall contributes to your evolution rather than your discouragement. Purpose transforms every stumble into a lesson, every misstep into a strategy, and every heartbreak into a deeper understanding of what drives you forward. Falling is never the end of the story. It is the prelude to transformation. The moment you hit the ground, it feels as if life has betrayed you. Your body aches, your heart hurts, and your mind questions every choice that led to this point. But that pain, raw and unfiltered, is the soil in which your future strength will grow. After every fall, there is a choice: remain crushed under the weight of disappointment or rise with a wisdom forged from adversity. The world will not pause to comfort you. The world will continue to move. And whether you rise or remain down determines whether you will participate in the life you were meant to live. After a fall, clarity emerges. The illusions of permanence, the misconceptions about control, and the arrogance of invincibility dissolve. You see, life is not about avoiding failure. It is about learning to navigate it. When you rise after a fall, you carry with you lessons no classroom, no book, no mentor can teach. You understand your limits and, more importantly, you discover your capacity to exceed them. Every scar, every bruise, every disappointment becomes evidence of your resilience. Falling changes your perspective. It teaches patience. It teaches gratitude. It teaches humility. And when you embrace these truths, your rise becomes unstoppable, fueled not by luck or chance, but by experience, wisdom, and determination. Momentum after a fall is a unique power. When you stand again, you are not the same as before. You are heavier with knowledge, lighter with fear, and sharper with focus. People who have fallen and risen multiple times move through life differently. They do not panic when storms arrive. They have walked through storms before. They do not fear risk. They have felt the sting of failure and discovered they can endure it. The fall was the forge, and the rise is the proof of what it created. Every subsequent challenge becomes easier, not because life gets easier, but because you have built the strength to meet it head-on. History is filled with people who fell spectacularly, yet rose with unstoppable force. Michael Jordan, often regarded as the greatest basketball player of all time, was cut from his high school basketball team. Instead of giving up, he used that fall as fuel, practicing relentlessly until he became a legend. Oprah Winfrey faced repeated rejection and personal trauma before becoming a global icon of media, philanthropy, and inspiration. J.K. Rowling experienced poverty, rejection from publishers, and heartbreak before Harry Potter became a worldwide phenomenon. These individuals did not avoid falling. they embraced it as part of the journey. They understood that every setback, every obstacle, every moment of despair was temporary, a test of character and a stepping stone to greatness. Their stories share common threads: courage in the face of fear, perseverance despite pain, and vision that transcends immediate circumstances. Each fall provided clarity and momentum. Each failure became a lesson. Each moment of despair became motivation to rise higher. Ordinary people encounter similar trials every day: lost jobs, broken relationships, failed plans, yet few rise because they do not see the fall as an opportunity. The exceptional understand that falling is inevitable. Staying down is optional. These stories serve as mirrors. They reflect what is possible when you refuse to let failure define you. They remind us that no fall is final unless we allow it to be. They demonstrate that greatness is not reserved for the lucky, the talented, or the privileged. It is reserved for those who are willing to endure, learn, and rise repeatedly. Every person who rises after a fall carries the potential to inspire others, creating ripples of resilience that extend far beyond personal achievement.